ESPN app. Let's talk Giants. They're wrapping up mini-camp. John Harbaugh's first as head coach there. And, of course, Jackson Dart's second as he prepares for a year two that feels like it has a lot of optimism around it. You're seeing those guys out there now. It's normal for this time of year to be optimistic, but the Giants have added a lot at key spots. So what do the players think about how it all feels? Here's Brian Burns with more.
But I'd be lying to say that if I didn't feel like this was a little different. I was a little excited, and I expect highly of this team. I'd be lying if I didn't say that. But at the end of the day, like I said, you got to prove it. It ain't just, it ain't just about being happy and optimistic. You got to get on the field and you got to prove it against another team and, impose your will on them.
Funny because if you read that quote and you didn't see him say it, you'd be like, oh, this feels really optimistic. It felt a little more businesslike when you actually see him talking. But Lindsay, what's the word from inside the organization of expectations for the team?
I can tell you the optimism is real. They love what John Harbaugh has brought there. The expectation this is going to be a bigger, a more physical team. In fact, John Harbaugh is saying around there is we're building Giants. We saw them do that through the draft, adding some bigger bodies. We've seen them do that through free agency, adding some bigger bodies there. And they've really seen that kind of play out on the field through the offseason program. I'm told Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo that they really are fitting so far into the signature Harbaugh toughness and the style he wants them to play. Obviously, the biggest question in there, is, as optimistic as they are, is whether or not Malik Neighbors will be good to go. But as I was reminded, they have OBJ, so he's a fan favorite and someone that they can help kind of bridge the gap if there is one week one.
Yeah, just really fast. Was there any more information on Neighbors and where his status is right now, Lindsay?
Sure, there's a lot of optimism that week one he will be out there, but it's kind of cautious optimism as we have seen with what they've done on the roster.
Yeah, it's a huge question mark, right? Bill, one addition to the team, though, linebacker Arvell Reese. Lindsay was referencing some of the size that they were able to acquire via the drafting and in free agency. How should the Giants utilize Arvell Reese, though, as such a versatile player?
Yeah, you have to get the most out of him by playing him in multiple spots. And we saw last year, even with Dexter Lawrence, one of the best nose tackles in football, their run defense was awful. They were last in the NFL in success rate against the run. Now, of course, Lawrence is in Cincinnati, and it's going to rely on those linebackers to play better on early downs. They swap out Bobby Okereke for Truman Edmonds, but Reese is going to be a key player here. He's going to see pass rush snaps on third down, on the line of scrimmage, on the edge, on the interior, but on early downs, can he be an off-ball linebacker? Can he get in the right spots, get in the right gaps? Can he take on NFL-sized guards and hold up against the run? The Giants have a great pass rush, but because they weren't in third and long very often last year, they didn't really get a chance to show that off. If they can hold up against the run on early downs, that's going to open up opportunities for all those great pass rushers to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, Bill, the Giants were 7th league-wide in pass rush win rate last year. Did it matter? Did it feel like it mattered? Because you got to, as the saying goes, stop the run to have some fun, and they were barely in position to have any fun. In fact, I was way too optimistic about this defense because I looked at all those pass rushers last season and I thought, who's stopping this group? Well, it turns out any running back in the NFL was stopping them by not allowing them to tee off and go after quarterbacks. And so that had to be a priority this year. I think whether or not some of the moves work out remains to be seen. I agree with your optimism about Arvell Reese and the impact of the change at linebacker. He is a phenomenal tackler. He's got terrific play strength. But I do question whether the defensive lineman up front can keep him clean. The addition of DJ Reader is helpful for sure, but I think losing Lawrence, Roy Robertson-Harris hurts. But the run defense has to be better than last year for them to have any chance because it was frankly abysmal last season.
It can only go up from where it was, right? No defense gave up more 10-yard rushes last season than the Giants. Okay, in case you missed it, you don't want to miss this. Lions head coach Dan Campbell spoke yesterday about the learning curve with new coordinators, including OC Drew Petzing. Take a listen.
You don't want to say you're starting ground up when you get new coordinators and new staff or new players or all that, but you kind of got to go back. You got to step back and work your way back up.
Mina, what are your expectations for the Lions this season? I like the honesty there from Campbell.
Yeah, I think whether or not this offense returns to form, in a manner of speaking, is really going to depend on the offensive line. I think that was a way bigger issue last year than even losing Ben Johnson, which hurt. But Jared Goff was 7th league-wide in quick pressure faced. He was 27th the year before. This is an offensive line that has seen injuries, that has seen retirements, and they have made efforts to improve it, both in free agency and the draft. Whether or not those pay off, particularly on the interior with, Seals moving to the left side, I think he'll be fine. That, to me, will determine whether or not Jared Goff has a successful season.
I think last season we thought Detroit was going to be in such a good spot. Didn't happen the way that they expected. We'll keep an eye on if they can get that turned around this year. Now to a developing story. Broncos linebacker Jonathan Cooper was arrested again Thursday night, the second time this month. He's been arrested stemming from a June 4th incident involving his girlfriend. The latest charges include the violation of a protection order on top of a felony charge of second-degree assault by strangulation and another misdemeanor assault charge, which were announced in court on Wednesday. During a court appearance this morning, Cooper was to be released on bond and ordered to abide by a no-contact protection order. We'll give you any more news as we get it. Coming up next year, the year of the Super Bowl at ESPN, we are telling the stories of these players and the moment they achieved immortality on football's biggest stage. During his NFL career, Mike Alstott was known for his hard-nosed approach to running the football. There might not be a better example of this than his touchdown in Super Bowl 37. All these stories in our year of the Super Bowl, and let's spend some more time on the current Buccaneers. After a pair of Pro Bowl selections, Baker Mayfield's third season with the Bucs did not meet expectations. Started out strong, though, going 6-2 with 4 game-winning drives, but Tampa went just 2-7 over their final 9 games, and Baker was far less efficient with the deep ball. Now, injuries across the board, including some that he was fighting through as well, played a factor in this. Mayfield seeking a contract extension with the Bucs. He spoke earlier this week on the status of negotiations.
Yeah, contract stuff is happening, starting, talks and whatnot, but not anywhere close to what we were thinking. So. We'd love to be here long term, and as of right now, that's not exactly the case. But I'm under contract for 2026. And the guys in that locker room, the staff know that I'm still going to be me. I'm still going to do everything I can to help this team win a Super Bowl, and to me, that's the priority. Everything else will take care of itself.
A lot of gnat sound going on there, so let me just recap in case you were trying to hear it like I was. Baker's basically saying they're not close. Somebody's dog's barking. I love that, too. But they're not close, but he wants to be a Buccaneer. We love it. All right, Lindsay, what is the latest you are hearing on negotiations between Baker and the Bucs?
Laura, the key point there is that Baker mentioned starting. Like, this is a starting point, and they are far apart right now. My understanding is this is just the beginning. Baker Mayfield, obviously in Tampa Bay, played on a prove-it deal, and then his deal the last few seasons has been significantly below the top of the market. Now, he's obviously not a top-of-the-market quarterback, but he does want to make up a big amount of ground in this next negotiation that would pay him commensurate with what he has done in Tampa Bay. So the key to that is starting. He did put a timeline on it, which the Bucs have not wanted to put a timeline on it. So that will be the most interesting part to see if the Bucs kind of speed up negotiations or really start to get involved in a back and forth with Baker and his representation to get a deal done by when he would like a deal done.
Yeah. Bill, I mentioned that injuries were a part of why things didn't go as well as they wanted them to last year. But what do Baker and the Bucs need to improve to shake off that rough second half of the season?
Need to get back to what Baker's done best over the course of his entire career, and that's the play-action game. Over the course of his time in Cleveland, Carolina, the Rams, the Bucs, about 15 points of QBR better using play-action than he is without a play fake. And last year, he was really good with play-action. Third best in the NFL in QBR, but they didn't use it very often. 25th in the league in terms of how often they used play action. And that could have been an injury thing. They didn't have Tristan Wirfs for a while. He was hurt. Their line was banged up all season. Bucky Irving out for a chunk of the year. I don't know if they had a lot of confidence in their run game, but that's what makes Baker's life easier. It gets him in a rhythm, gets him on the move where I think he's at his best. Would like to see them use play action early and often here in 2026.
Yeah, totally agree about play action with Baker. There are a lot of things that kind of went wrong for Tampa in the second half of the season. Baker has to take better care of the football. There were offensive line injuries. The run game struggled down the stretch. But the other thing I'll emphasize is Emeka Egbuka, the rookie receiver, looked like a phenom the first few weeks of the season. And then he kind of disappeared. And I think certainly, he needs to take a step forward and start hot next year. But I also think their new offensive play caller, Zach Robinson, needs to make sure he's utilized correctly. One thing I noticed as the season went along and defenses started to key in on him, He struggled at times to get open versus man coverage, particularly when he was pressed at the line of scrimmage. In fact, versus off coverage over the course of the year, he was still a top 20 receiver in yards per route run, but versus press, he was 64th. So Robinson can't just line him up at the X like he's Mike Evans. He's got to find ways through motion and formation and lining him off the ball to keep him clean, because I still think he's an exceptional young talent, so good against zone coverage in particular. But he's got to get open. He's got to be a big part of this offense to do so.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Mike Evans. Of course, he will not be there, and he was at times such a go-to for Baker Mayfield, a security blanket when he was healthy and out on the field. So it feels like it should be Ibuka, but yeah, to Mina's point, he's going to have to take that by the horns. All right, Patriots receiver A.J. Brown arrived at OTA soon after being traded from the Eagles on June 1st. He's been working on building some chemistry with quarterback Drake May. You see him out there getting ready to go in that Patriots jersey. Brown had some great things to say about his new quarterback. Take a listen.
The talent speaks for itself. You know, he can make any throw. But I think what's more impressive to me is that he knows what he's doing. And to be that young and to understand the defense and to understand every little check, the hots, the blitz, and all those things so young and so fast is very impressive. I really admire that. He knows what he's talking about. He demands everybody else to know as well. And he's a true leader. He's a true leader of men. And it's crazy to see at a young age.
A.J. Brown talking real positive about a quarterback, his new one, of course. Mina, how do you see Brown fitting into this offense?
Yeah, I'm sure people in Philadelphia won't feel any kind of way about that.
I felt
really
some
well,
kind of way.
right? I mean, it's
sorry.
It's hard not to. It's a hand and glove fit, right? Like Drake May, so good throwing against man coverage. A.J. Brown, best receiver against man coverage in the NFL over the last few years. Drake May, amazing on those tight window throws. A.J. Brown, so good on tight window throws. But I'm going to highlight something else, which I think he could potentially mitigate one concern I do have about the Patriots, and that's the offensive line. And we really saw that exposed during the playoff run, of course. And they still have confidence in Will Campbell playing left tackle. You're moving Jared Wilson inside. You drafted Caleb Lomu as insurance. That's all great. But I do think A.J. Brown as an outlet for Drake May could help address potential issues with the offensive line. On throws under 2.5 seconds, so quick game over the last 3 years, A.J. Brown has 0 drops. Pete, 0 drops. He is second in yards per route run league-wide. So just having that as a security blanket for Drake May could help address any issues he has in terms of pressure created by the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, not only with the quick game, but then also on those extended snaps with play action. That's where A.J. Brown really excelled in Tennessee, and the Eagles not really use him in the same way. So go back to those Titans days. He had more than 1,000 yards on play action in breakers, catching the ball between the numbers, those digs, those slants, those skinny posts, those just in-breaking routes. That's what Tennessee loved to do with him. In Philadelphia, it didn't really happen. They just were not as often using those throws. Maybe it's Jalen Hurts, maybe it's the structure of the offense, but go to the Patriots. Last year, guess who led the NFL in QBR on play-action throws over the middle of the field? Well, it was Drake May. He loves to make those throws. And so when you think about how the offense might differ going from Philadelphia to New England, I think it's back to those Tennessee days, those digs, those in-breakers, getting play action, creating those opportunities, create those passes over the middle of the field, and then creating opportunities after the catch as well.
Like Mina and Bill said, so much of A.J. Brown and Drake May, that was a connection that needed to happen for the both of them. Drake May needed that go-to, like Mina said, security blanket receiver. The early returns from OTAs are that he's been just that. And maybe the thing that catches some people by surprise is that this team has already leaned on him to be a leader. They have wanted him to step in first in line to lead the stretching. And A.J. Brown has actually stepped back and said, no, I need to earn that position. Now at the end of OTAs, he is starting to do that, take that leadership role, and be that guy that Drake May needs when he needs someone to get the ball to.
Yeah, it makes sense with Mike Vrabel's familiarity with him from his time in Tennessee. He knows he's got the leadership capabilities. Okay, new on NFL Live, Adam Schefter is reporting the NFL closed out its review of the matter involving Stephon Diggs and his former chef. There was insufficient evidence to support a finding of personal conduct policy violation. The decision comes after the former New England Patriots wideout was found not guilty in May of assaulting his private chef in a pay dispute. As you can see here, Stephon Diggs ranking second among ESPN's best free agents still available this offseason. Here's the top 10. 4 offensive linemen make the list, as well as a pair of edge rushers, Joey Bosa and Cam Jordan. The only player in the top 10 younger than 30 is Mekhi Becton, but a lot of experience on that list. You got to think some of them will be added to some of these teams that still need some pieces and spots. Still to come. We're back on NFL Live. Oh, look at Myles Garrett there. Oh, he dissolved, and there's a reason why. Lamar Jackson was recently asked about how he feels about Myles Garrett being traded out of the division.
I'm like, yes. I'm gonna see him, but then we got the other guy from the. Yeah, like he good too, you know. So man, shouts out to him, you know. Shouts out to Myles, you know. Congratulations on that. But yes, that's awesome.
He was catching himself. He's like, "There's still Jared Verse." Bill, is Lamar's reaction valid?
It sure is. I mean, Myles Garrett had 11 sacks with Lamar Jackson and created 4.5 more sacks for his teammates. Of course, 14 games in his career. So yes, as Lamar said, Jared Verse is also good, but Myles Garrett is a difference maker, not only in terms of what he does, but also in terms of what he creates for other people. They'll be happy with him playing elsewhere.
Okay, on the flip side, however, I think we're going to see Myles rematerialize here. There he is. Oh, okay. Cardinals linebacker Mack Wilson had a different reaction on Garrett arriving to the NFC West.
How do you feel about Myles joining?
They got to deal with us. At the end of the day, they got to deal with us.
He's on the defensive side. Lindsay, should Wilson be this confident?
Look, I love the confidence. That's exactly what Mike LaFleur wants out of his new team, but I don't think he should be this confident. I know he was his teammate for several seasons in Cleveland, but the Rams are 16-4 against the Cardinals during Sean McVay's tenure. I think that Mack Wilson needs to learn right now that they're at the bottom of the division. They have been for a while, and they don't need to egg on the two-time Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay, on to Philly, where left tackle Jordan Mailata had high praise for his new OC, Sean Mannion.
Sean is a evil genius. That is my first impressions. He just knows ball. The guy knows ball, and if I were to lock the 3 smartest people in the facility in one room, Sean would be there, and I think Sean would just be by himself in that. It would just be Sean. He's a wizard, and man, I'm super excited. As the year goes on, we get to display what is in that beautiful mind of his.
We need more Mailata on the show just for the accent alone. Mina, how will Mannion improve this Eagles offense?
Beautiful singing voice too, right? I think that the offensive linemen are hoping he improves things for them by making it a little less harder, to tell whether it's a run or a pass. I'm reminded of a comment that Lane Johnson, the right tackle, made last year in about October, where he didn't say Kevin Patullo's name, but he said that the run game felt predictable, and that was making life harder for everyone. Yeah. Opposing defenses knew when Saquon Barkley was going to get the ball, and that's a big part of why he had the 3rd highest stuff rate in the NFL. So I think Mailata's comment is, I believe, a comment on the overall direction of the offense, making life easier for everyone by creating some unpredictability.
We love to hear it, right? Sean Mannion will be the Eagles' 5th OC in 6 seasons, but that hasn't really impacted Philadelphia offensively. Up until last season, the Eagles were essentially a top 10 offense no matter who was coordinator. Mannion hoping to revive that 19th ranked offense from a year ago. Mina bringing up some great points about how they can do that. And Bill, the Eagles with a new OC, but also with the loss of A.J. Brown, you think about all the changes there. How do they sort of handle all that with what they most need to improve?
Starts up front for the Eagles. When they're good, their offensive line is playing phenomenally. When they are struggling, the offensive line's either hurt or they're not playing up to expectations. And that leads to one of the most fascinating people in football. He didn't make it into Jordan Mailata's locked facility scenario, but one of the most fascinating people this year is Chris Cooper, the new Eagles offensive line coach. He's taking over for Jeff Stoutland, who was revered inside the building and outside the building in Philadelphia for his work as the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator. And some of the run game issues last year did fall on Stoutland. He was not going to have that role if he stayed, and that's one of the reasons why the Eagles decided to part ways and move on from Stoutland and vice versa this offseason. So Chris Cooper, a former NFL player, was in Minnesota last year with a line that didn't necessarily live up to expectations. A lot's going to be riding on him and this new run game to get the Eagles going on early downs. And if it doesn't work out, I do think we will never have heard an offensive line coach's name more on sports radio than we will hear Chris Cooper's name in Philadelphia over the next 6 months.
Ooh. Yeah, the point you made about the offensive line injuries is one that jumps to my mind a little bit, because as much as I said this at the beginning, I think Kevin Patullo got a lot of deserved criticism for the offense as a whole, and the run game, I think maybe, some of the schematic issues plagued that and it led to some predictability. They were also really banged up. Landon Dickerson never quite healthy. Cam Jurgens coming off of, I believe, the back injury, played through pain. So one wonders if, in addition to a new scheme, maybe keeping defenses a little bit on their toes, actually having a completely healthy starting five helps this ground game. Because, as much as we talk about the overall scheme changing and Jalen Hurts under center and the play action game, the identity of this team remains the run game led by that offensive line, and they need to be bounced back in a big way.
What's interesting is we heard Dan Campbell earlier say when you have a new offensive coordinator, you're kind of starting at the ground level. This offense obviously has been among the best in the league for many seasons now, but it is a new coordinator, and he does need to find how he fits with Jalen Hurts, with Saquon Barkley. I did reach out to someone close to Sean Mannion who echoed Jordan Mailata, said this guy is so intelligent. They are going to see it in Philadelphia immediately. I did also think it's interesting with Mannion that he spent time in Los Angeles under Matt LaFleur. Obviously, Matt LaFleur hired him to be an offensive assistant. So watch for a lot of what LaFleur does with the Packers to maybe translate a little bit to what they want to do in Philadelphia.
I love it. It all sounds great, but it's OTAs, so they got to put it out on the field. Some changes certainly for Jalen Hurts, too, that he's never really done before, turning his back to the defense. We'll talk a lot about that, I'm sure, on this show and many others. Okay, next on NFL Live. While there's been uncertainty of George Pickens attending Cowboys minicamp next week, Dak Prescott isn't hitting the panic button. Let's hear from Dak, and we'll see you in just a bit.
George is George. He's great. He's awesome. The personality, excitement, his energy was consistent as it's been